Well, good evening, IFL Nation, and welcome back to the lab, your weekly source to get the rundown of all things Indoor Football League. Whether you're here for the recap of the week that was, the forecast of the week that is to come, or checking out any other great goings on in this league, I'm glad to inform you that you are in the right place. It is 9 p.m. here on a Friday night, which means that it is a time for another edition of Wager Wednesday in the Indoor Football League. I want to thank you so much again for tuning in, taking some time out of your weekend to talk some indoor football with me. So, for those of you who are new to the Indoor Football League or maybe are stumbling upon this channel for the first time, I want to welcome you aboard. My name is Alex Schuberth. I am the lead IFL contributor over for a sports forum site called Sports Coast to Coast, which is a Pacific Northwest based sports forum site that specializes specifically in the coverage of the Indoor Football League and its 14 member teams specifically. Each week we have up to date team rosters, previews, where to watch the games. Ultimately, we'll recap and have other analysis of the game and the league as well. So, for those of you who have not yet heard of Sports Coast to Coast, go check it out. It is a fantastic resource to really enhance your IFL fandom. I've linked it down below in the description, where there you will also find the written version of the Wager Wednesday piece for the week. That is also linked below the link to the forum. We have Monica chiming in. Welcome, Monica. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. Springtime has definitely come to Portland. I am ecstatic to hear it. I will say the weather up here in New England is very weird, especially next week. I was actually talking to my coworker earlier today. It's supposed to be like, mid 70s midweek. And then we get like rain, snow, slushy forecast like literally the day later. So Mother Nature never seems to make up her mind around these parts. So nice to hear the weather is turning around somewhere else. Makes for good golfing weather and other outdoor activities as well. So with that having been said, let's pull up our other screen here and get right to it. Week 3 of the 2026 season. We've had a couple weeks so far. Not everybody has played yet, but we will make sure that gets corrected with this week's slate of games. So let's dive in. Week 2 was pretty amazing. We had 4 games on the docket. They were all fantastic games. Can't really say the same about my betting record for this week, but we'll get right into that momentarily. And we'll recap each of those 4 games. We had Iowa and Quad City, Fishers and Green Bay. Those were the 2 games last Saturday. Our standalone Sunday game with the Orlando Pirates and the New Mexico Chupacabras, as well as Monday night's tilt between the Northern Arizona Wranglers and the San Diego Strike Force. So we'll go into detail on exactly how those games went, what the highlights were, and what our betting results were. We will add all of those to our season-long tracker as it beefs up its sample size by a factor of 3, since now we have 6 games played in the IFL as opposed to the 2 that we entered last week with. So we will go over all of those. We'll dive into as much detail there as we can before we have our main event of the night, forecasting, previewing, and predicting the 4 games that await us this week. So 2 on Saturday, so tomorrow, as well as the couple on Sunday. We'll go through our picks game by game, and then we'll put together a 3-leg parlay of the week, which last week we'll get into as well, came up just a hair short. So week 2 results. Here we go. We began week 2 with a matchup between Iowa and Quad City. The Barnstormers opening up their season on the road against a Steamwheeler team that had fallen flat in their opener against the Fishers Freight. And Iowa got off to a surprising start here. They managed a field goal on their opening drive forced a fumble on the ensuing kickoff and turned that into a touchdown. So before fans really had a chance to truly settle into their seats, what we ended up having was a 9-0 Barnstormer lead. But Quad City, you knew they were going to bounce back. They were going to weather any sort of early surge that Iowa could have gotten. Really fueled by the offense. Daquan Neal, Keon Williams, and the rest of that Steamwheeler crew really helped steer the ship along the straight and narrow. They ended that first half on a run of 30-9, which allowed them to take a 30-18 two-score lead into the locker room. And once they got the ball to start the second half, they continued to maintain that tone set throughout the latter stages of the first half, where they were successful in keeping Iowa at bay. First-time starting quarterback Harry Rubidoux showed some flashes of brilliance and a nice connection with Curtis Ravenel, but also had 3 interceptions to his name. So some promise, some pain points for Iowa still to kind of sift through. But this game ended up with Quad City winning 46-25, 21-point margin of victory, enough for the Steamwheelers to cover the spread, pretty comfortably so. And that got our week started on the right foot. Our other game on Saturday, the Fishers Freight at the Green Bay Blizzard. Green Bay once again attempting to defend home turf against a team that had entered the week with the longest streak of covers amongst all active teams in the league. So this was a titanic battle, and one that a rising star answered the call for. That's right, Liam Thompson, fresh off a Week 1 Offensive Player of the Week nomination, provided a stellar encore performance. The first half was pretty much perfect football for him and the Blizzard offense. They put up 35 in the first half, compared to just 16 for the Fishers Freight, as they had troubles getting started with the game. But this is a 60-minute game, right? The Freight didn't quit. They stared what was a 26-point hole, and they just attacked both sides of the ball. Felix Harper in the offense, touchdown drive after touchdown drive. The defense on the other side getting multiple stops. And I believe it was midway through the fourth quarter, they had narrowed the lead to 6 with a chance to potentially take the lead. But the Blizzard defense, looking for a big play, finally got it when it was Kevin Ransom intercepted a pass from Felix Harper that was heading right for the end zone. And that allowed Green Bay the opportunity to take over. They score a touchdown on the ensuing drive. That really, truly put the game away from that point onward. Truly thrilling, great game, but it's the Green Bay Blizzard that advanced to 2-0, backed by a 7-touchdown performance out of Liam Thompson. They get that win 52-41. Those 93 points make up the highest scoring game of the IFL this season, which naturally we took the under, and that bet subsequently lost. And Monica chiming in saying Fishers definitely appearing to be the second half team thus far. Small sample size, but you know what? It's very hard to ignore what they've accomplished in the back half of games so far. The way that they closed out Quad City in the opener, the way they came back against Green Bay. They're the ultimate team, it appears, where you can't really write them off, regardless of where you are in the game or in the season. So we'll see if they're able to maybe stretch that span of high upside football across more of the 60-minute span. But so far, pretty encouraging start for the Freight, despite last week's setback. Sunday's game, Orlando at New Mexico, the two, you can call it newest, freshest brands in the Indoor Football League. Kicked off at Tingley Coliseum in Albuquerque. It is the return of indoor football to Albuquerque for the first time since 2019, when the then Duke City Gladiators were members of the Champions Indoor Football, CIF. And this game was very entertaining, very back and forth. Both teams had opportunities to really assert dominance on their aspect of the game for the Pirates. They had to navigate that sudden change at quarterback. They were entering this game thinking that they were going to have Tolia Tagovailoa as their starter. Instead, he gets plucked by the Houston Gamblers of the United Football League. So rookie quarterback Paxton Delorent gets his opportunity, and boy, did he look good. 18 of 22 passing, I believe, was what I had for when I tracked his stats. No turnovers, one touchdown pass, but really the heavy lifting in terms of the scoring was done by rushing king from last season, Puka Williams. 4 rushing touchdowns on 11 carries. He cracked 50 yards on the ground for the game. And that allowed Orlando to get out to an early lead. They were up by a couple possessions, and then New Mexico came back. They got a couple touchdown drives, a safety right around the end of the first half. And then that second half, we saw that lead shift hands, I think it was 6 times, as the teams traded touchdown for touchdown. Right up until the very end of the fourth quarter, the Chupacabras had the ball down 3 with the chance to potentially get a late score to maybe win the game. But they were stopped right around midfield. Fourth down comes around. The decision is made to go for the field goal and the tie. Unfortunately for the Chupacabras, Ben Derby, who was with the reigning champion Nighthawks last season, couldn't bang it through. The Pirates run out the rest of the clock, and they kick a couple different hoaxes with their 41-38 win over New Mexico. It is a rare road win for the team, but it also snaps a 9-game Western Conference losing streak for the franchise. So a little bit of a monkey off the back there. Granted, maybe one where you're reaching a little deeper back than what you would typically. But in any event, nice start for Orlando. They are 1-0. On Monday, we had Monday Night Football, second straight week. Northern Arizona at San Diego in a game where the Strike Force were fairly heavily favored. They were laying 6.5 on that occasion. We ended up taking the under for this one, seeing that these games have historically been reasonably low scoring in the past. The game got a little bit quicker start than what we would probably have been comfortable with. Eddie Vander of the San Diego Strike Force leading the way at running back with each of San Diego's 3 touchdowns in the first half. Ramon Atkins-Frazier for Northern Arizona also orchestrating 3 touchdown drives for the Wranglers in that first half. And then the second half saw a little bit of an intriguing story. We didn't really have a whole lot of possessions, but the teams were still scoring touchdowns nonetheless. And basically for the entire second half, it was either San Diego's up by 8 and they just scored, or San Diego's up by 1 and Northern Arizona just got a touchdown. What the game and our wager came down to was on the last drive for Northern Arizona, they were down by 8, 42-34. Time dwindling down on the clock. I think it was with less than 10 seconds to go. Need to have it play for Northern Arizona, and they got it. Ramon Atkins-Frazier firing a touchdown pass to Kieran Page to get them to within 2. They initially succeeded on the 2-point conversion, but it was called back by an offensive penalty, and they were unable to convert on the second attempt while also being driven back 10 yards as part of that penalty. So unfortunately, they couldn't get the deuce either. So San Diego escapes with a hard-fought 42-40 victory over the Northern Arizona Wranglers. Our underbet crumbles at the dying stages. Had a shot there, but instead it's the 2-game swing. Instead of 2-2, we fall to 1-3 for the week. So that was our weekly record. Our big pick, the Mortal Mega Max of New Mexico Chupacabras money line, fell short by 3 points. So right at that tail end of the week, that Sunday and Monday, we were very much reacquainted with the concept of the bad beat. So a bit of a slower start in terms of getting these predictions correct. But you know what? This is the nature of the game. where at its worst, the margin between winning and losing can be so razor thin, it's almost incomprehensible. Notably, we've gotten both of our spread picks correct, and we've gotten none of our over-under picks correct. A bit surprising considering that we were so good with these a season ago, converting on 64%. So is that long overdue regression to the mean? Is it maybe we're reading those point totals incorrectly, or is it just simply bad luck? Could be all three for all we know, but that's the reality of the situation. That is where we stand, and that's some context that we have in terms of constructing our picks moving forward. Our parlay of the week was so close to finally breaking that drought that we went through last season. Green Bay winning outright, covering as underdogs. The Strike Force surviving against Northern Arizona for a 2-point win. But that second leg, Orlando, New Mexico, under 78.5, flames out because the final score was 41-38. Add those two up, that is 79 points. A half point short of turning $10 into over $50. Can't get much more excruciatingly painful than that. So, unfortunately, the wait is going to continue to try to come up with a winning three-legger, but maybe that's this week. We'll see. But so far, 0 for 1. Again, our goal is 4 wins on these 3-leg parlays over the course of the season. Last year, we got to 3. So looking to improve there. Here is a illustration of our results so far. That down week 2 causing a little bit of a slide on both methods. The weighted method brought down by the fact that both of our mortals have been incorrect so far. So hopefully that confidence will be placed on picks that ultimately turn out correct moving forward. But yeah, here's to hoping for a positive week here to at least stem that negative tide a little bit. Our yearly results by bet. This table is still in its infancy, but one significant trend that we can draw so far is underdogs and home teams have been dominating, with underdogs covering in every game except for one, and the home team covering in every game except for one. If you drill deeper and look at home teams that have been the underdogs, they have covered in all 4 of those games this season, outright winning in 3 of them. So will that be something that we look to potentially ride and tail as we get into our week 3 slate of games? Underdogs have won equally as much as has favorites, although again, still very early in that category. Over-unders are even as well, although granted last week we had 3 overs set on games with pretty deflated totals. Each of the games that went over, none of them had an over-under exceeding 80. So is that something, again, where we look ahead to this week's picks and see maybe a correction in the lines going forward? We're going to have to see how those pan out once we get to our game-by-game previews. Team-by-team trends, we see a couple of perfect streaks here. Green Bay on the money line and against the spread. We have documented quite often how incredible they have been at home. And coincidentally, both of their games have been home, where they've won as underdogs, no less. Both Quad City games managing the under, with the 73 points in their opener and their 71 points in their previous game against the Barnstormers. So we'll have to see if that is a trend that continues when they play their game next week against Orlando. They're on a bye this week, as are the Pirates. It's So again, another 4 games this week is going to fill in a little bit more of this field. We'll have results on all 14 teams. So that'll be something to look forward to as well in the medium to long term. And our game-by-game picks are right here. We went with the over-under in both of Fisher's games on the young season, and we ended up losing both. Again, we're 0-3 in total on that bet type so far this season, so certainly not the most encouraging sign there. But again, still early. And where this table is going to really show its value is once we get to about that midway point in the season. Which teams are we doing really well with a 5-3, 6-2 record? Where are we struggling in terms of a 2-6, 3-5 record? So that way we can really truly frame our mind to come up with some educated picks and seeing which trends outshine others with relation to that. Before we get into the game-by-game previews, weekly disclaimers. The odds that we're going to use today are going to come from DraftKings Sportsbook, and this series is a construct rooted in fun and curiosity. Nothing more, nothing less. It's not meant to be sports betting related advice or as a means to make money. There's no such thing as a guarantee or a lock in the sports wagering world, as many of those out there putting some skin on March Madness will probably tell you. If you would like to follow along with my picks or perhaps go against them, which would have been profitable these past couple weeks, but in any event, if you are going to play, please do so responsibly. Make sure you're doing so legally. 21 plus in most jurisdictions to play. Practice safe gaming habits, including setting a budget in terms of your spend, both time and money. Risk only what you can afford to lose. And if you feel like you or a loved one is having trouble or maybe teetering on problem gaming territory, don't be afraid to refer to whichever resources. Reach out. There's plenty of sources online that you can refer to. I have haveagameplan.org as one example there. Responsibleplay.org is another. There are also state-by-state specific resources to dive into as well. So know that you're not alone and that help and support is out there should the need arise. With that being said, we have our 4 games set up right there. Let's dive in. Put our big board front and center here. Fantastic. So we will get things underway tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Eastern. This game will be on Yahoo Sports Network. It is the San Diego Strikeforce at the Arizona Rattlers in Glendale, rematch of last year's controversial first-round playoff game. The odds makers are making the Rattlers the home favorites at 3.5 points. The over-under is 83 in the hook. Money line, San Diego plus 136 and Arizona minus 162. I will tell you, whoever is in charge of creating the schedules for the IFL is not getting paid enough. To put this game as Arizona's opener specifically, good Lord. If nothing else, you know what? Arizona's going to be, supercharged in terms of getting their season started on a high note. They've historically been very, very strong with getting their season started. More often than not, they'll usually wind up with a 1-0 start. But this is the first time that we're going to be seeing them this year, and they're going to have a pretty brand new look. They went out and got Max Myler, last year's IFL MVP winning quarterback from the Green Bay Blizzard a season ago. And he's got a terrific offense that he is bound to make his own as the season moves along here. He brings over Kamani Clark, his tailback from Titletown. And you've got some returning stars as well, Ron Brown Jr., Corey Reed, Johannes Tyler. It's going to be a potentially very exciting offense to watch over these next 4 or 5 months or so. Defensively, they've reinforced themselves with the signings of Mikael Calhoun. They bring over Hayden Hatcher from the Jacksonville Sharks. So that front line is going to be really good. That defensive backfield is going to be really good. But yeah, it's the perennial powerhouse that is the Arizona Rattlers. But they're going up against a San Diego team that you can make an argument is their biggest rival. The Strike Force coming off of Monday night's win, so they have a little bit of a shorter turnaround leading into this one. But yeah, they looked as good as ever pulling out that win, showing that grit needed to eke out some of those tough ones. Nate Davis at quarterback seemed to gel really well with his receivers. Jalen Sample, Shane Hooks, Cole Blackman had a couple really nice plays in his first game as a Strike Force receiver, coming over from the Tulsa Oilers where he played a season ago. That defense is headlined by Elijah Reed, who was the Defensive Player of the Week last week with this pair of interceptions, as the Strike Force pulled off 3 of those on Ramon Atkins-Frazier. So getting a glimpse of that 2024 defense that led the entire IFL in takeaways. My pick for this game, it's a fascinating one. Monica chiming in, saying going with the over in San Diego, Arizona. I do like that pick. I do. My single game bet, though, is going to gravitate elsewhere for this one. So one thing that I noticed while going through my historical data is that the Strike Force have been exceptional at covering the spread, particularly in road games, believe it or not. A 16-10-1 ATS record outside of SoCal since 2023. For context, the league average in terms of road covers is right around 45%. So they are exceedingly outplaying that. As for the Arizona Rattlers, perhaps a team that may be slightly overvalued in terms of setting the spreads in the past few years. Their cover rate, I think, is only 22 and 29, somewhere around there, right around that 40-ish% clip in the low 40s. The fact that we can potentially take San Diego on the right side of that field goal key number is an opportunity that I feel like I cannot pass up. The Strike Force specifically also, they are 5-2 lifetime against the spread against these Arizona Rattlers. So unlike a few other teams that we've seen go into Arizona, not just at the IFL level, but the AFL level as well, San Diego is not one of those teams that's going to come in and crumble. I mean, yeah, they had the bad game in the 2024 Western Final, but you know, every team is bound to have that down game every so often. But I absolutely love this pick. Underdogs have been very strong to start the season as well. And we do get a very good San Diego team, again, above that key number of 3.5. So that is the path that I'll be taking to kick off this week. San Diego, +3 in the hook. Our other game on Saturday night will follow San Diego, Arizona. This will be a 9 p.m. tip with a first ever matchup between the Jacksonville Sharks and the Northern Arizona Wranglers. So the Wranglers coming back after that narrow loss at San Diego. They are 3.5-point underdogs at home. The over-under is 80.5. Jacksonville is -162 as the favorite on the money line, whereas Northern Arizona +136 if you like the home team to outright win in the home opener at Prescott Valley. To begin this pick, or to begin the preview of this game, let's talk a little bit about the Jacksonville Sharks. Haven't had a chance to see them in action yet, but we do have a general idea of what their team looks like. They carry over some strong talent that propelled them to a 10-6 finish a season ago, en route to a playoff appearance. But they're also bringing in some high-impact free agents on both sides of the ball, headlined by their new shiny toy at quarterback, Cape Cod kid, James Cahoon, who put up insane video game numbers as a member of the Iowa Barnstormers in his rookie year, where he was more or less asked to handle the entire workload of the offense, as Iowa couldn't really get any sort of a run game going in 2025. Much different environment out here at Duval, though. Perhaps making his return at running back, Jimmy Robinson, potentially coming back from that season-ending knee injury that he suffered early last season. His return would be a massive boost to a team that also features some decent receiving weapons out there to catch passes. Jaden Stoshak and Marquell Wade returned. You also have Lowell Patron coming over from Green Bay. So it's a very formidable trio of receivers that Cahoon has to work with. Not to mention Robinson's ability out of the backfield as a receiver. So there's a lot of opportunities for Jacksonville to get super creative with the way that they want to run their offense. Defensively, they bring back some big players there. They got Chris Rice alongside John Huggins. They also bring over, I believe, Nigel Canada from the Green Bay Blizzard, manning that defensive back position. Chris Chakwenike from Quad City. So, for Coach Jason Gibson, this is more of a reload rather than a rebuild, as the Sharks look to get their season started on a 1-0 note on the road, not too dissimilar from what they did last season. Their opponent, though, Northern Arizona, man, did they show moxie, even though they ended up coming up just a couple points short of a major upset in San Diego. It was just a few too many mistakes that the Wranglers had last week. Atkins Frazier, 3 interceptions. Manny Higuera missed a couple of opportunities on some deuces, had a field or an extra point miss, which unfortunately for him ended up mattering. But yeah, they showed fight, and now they're back in an environment that is super conducive to their chances of finishing the job this time around. Last year, the Wranglers were a very commendable 5-3 against the spread, whereas the Jacksonville Sharks on the road, not so great, 2-6 against the spread outside of VyStar Veterans Memorial Arena. And if you want to include their playoff loss to Quad City, that number gets bumped down further to 2-7. So we had talked a little bit earlier about home underdogs being red hot to start the season. I assert that we are going to remain perfect in those scenarios. We get another underdog at plus 3.5. I love underdogs at plus 3.5. If you've been with me for any stretch of time, you know that I have an unhealthy addiction to these numbers when the situation is right, of course. But really, with these picks, you're hoping for a close game. And if it happens to get settled by a Jacksonville field goal, you are immune, provided that kick is not a 4-point drop kick attempt, which, again, is very rare in the IFL. We actually haven't even seen a drop kick attempt in the IFL this season following the rule change. So we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for those as well. But be that as it may, Northern Arizona, I just like what they've built there. And I feel like their time to shine with those wins piling up is going to come sooner rather than later. Potentially as soon as tomorrow if they can put together a solid 60 minutes against the Jacksonville Sharks. So give me the Wranglers at plus 3.5 here. We are going to go with 2 underdogs on the spread to get our week going on Saturday night. On Sunday, we also have a doubleheader. We'll kick things off in San Antonio at 4 p.m. Eastern as the Gunslingers play host to the Tulsa Oilers. It'll be the second consecutive year that both teams have opened with this particular matchup at this particular location. The Gunslingers are the favorite team here, but only by a 1.5. The over-under is the lowest of the week at 78.5. Tulsa is plus a nickel on the money line, and if you like San Antonio to win outright, you're laying that quarter at minus 125. A lot about this game in terms of kind of like expectations heading in depends entirely on the status of TJ Edwards at quarterback for the Tulsa Oilers. For those of you who might be just joining in this season, Edwards is the 2023 IFL MVP winner, extremely talented dual threat quarterback, one of the very best that the IFL has seen in the past 3-4 years. But he had a really, really nasty injury late last season, a very serious crushing injury to his leg. But fortunately for him and for the rest of IFL Nation, he has seemed to recover very well. He was posting workout drills, throwing the ball over on his socials. So we'll have to see if he winds up returning for this game. It'll be very exciting, very heartwarming sort of situation if he does. But if he happens to be not quite ready yet, Tulsa has a nice contingency plan with one of Edwards' former teammates rejoining forces with him for this season in Trip Harrington, a dual threat quarterback wide receiver combo that has been one of the more unique explosive players that the IFL has seen in the recent going. So that ultimate answer at quarterback is going to be very fascinating to see how it plays out. But yeah, the Oilers are coming off that 10-6 season last year. They made the playoffs for the very first time. Ended up getting blown out pretty badly by the Blizzard in that opening round playoff game, but better believe they'll be back looking for a better finish this time around. They've got some pretty good weapons on the defensive side as well. Ulrich Jones returns, as does Cedarius Doss. Amon Ross also comes over from the Jacksonville Sharks. So there's some good pieces there for Tulsa to kind of double down on their run from last year. Meanwhile, for San Antonio, a lot of veteran pieces in place. Fred Payton Jr. figures to start this game at quarterback for the Gunslingers. Jalen Robinson gets back into the Gunslinger lineup after he suffered an injury in the mid stages of last season that cost him the rest of the year. And Dion McShane, a speedster from Quad City, heading down to Alamo City, taking his talents there to try to help the Gunslingers. The defense, if you're a fan of the Pirates, you're going to notice a lot of names on this roster. Terry Beckner Jr., Matt Elam, as a couple of examples of some players expected to suit up there. So yeah, we're going to have another edition of the Red Rumble here. The Oilers ended up sweeping this series 3-0 last year. And this was probably one of the more surprising offerings that I had seen, because I actually have Tulsa as the favorite in this one. So for the second straight week, we're going to roll the dice on an underdog, albeit a slight one. We'll go with the Oilers at plus 105 on the money line, and let the record show this is the mortal mega max of the week. That is the level of confidence that I have in the Oilers coming out with a win. Playoff team from last year versus non-playoff team from last year, albeit one that had upside. San Antonio, of their 5 wins last season, 3 of them came against playoff teams, including road wins against the Jacksonville Sharks and the Bay Area Panthers, who finished the league best 13-3 a season ago. So definitely one of those ones where it could go either way. Not saying that it's not. But I do like the number here, the value that we're getting out of Tulsa, with a better than 50% chance of winning according to my model. So anytime there's that and you get plus money on it, you kind of have to take it. So let's go with the Tulsa Oilers for another 1-0 start to outright win in San Antonio. Last game of the week will be at 7:30 Eastern on Sunday. The Vegas Nighthawks against the Tucson Sugar Skulls, who will be the final team to make their season debut. It'll happen on the last game of week 3. Defending champion Vegas, favored by 5.5. The over-under is 82.5. Vegas is minus 192 money line, and Tucson plus 160. The more I looked into this game, and the more I look into both rosters, there's so many different directions that you can go with evaluating this one out. The Sugar Skulls have put together a pretty interesting roster. There's a lot of proven experience and talent on both sides of the ball. They got a couple really good running backs in Brandon Mackey along with Tyler King. Defensively, they've got some stars in the making there. They have Rafiq Abdul-Wahid, who they signed from Green Bay, along with Brian Murray, who was a pretty exceptional defensive back a season ago. But really, the biggest question mark on Tucson revolves around that quarterback position. They're kind of in a similar position that Iowa is in, where they've got a couple rookies where the expectation is one of them wins the starting job, and you're pretty much hoping that one guy shows some flashes of brilliance and winds up being the right choice in terms of which guy comes up with the best chance to win week in, week out. That's either going to be Casey Otto or Hayave Megalai will be the quarterback making his first IFL start on Sunday night. Whoever gets the draw, tough assignment against the defending champs coming off a season opening loss. Not to mention their direct adversary happens to be the guy who won the IFL Championship MVP back in August with Jaden DeLora, who put together another pretty solid performance despite the loss against the Blizzard a couple weeks ago. He personally did not turn the ball over, I don't believe. But yeah, it was just a little bit too slow of a start for that Nighthawk offense to overcome later down the line. But in evaluating this pick, this is one where my model had this right around this 5.5 number. It actually had it at slightly less. But in the end, I do like this Vegas pick at minus 5.5 the best. And really what this one boils down to is, can the Vegas defense, with the talent that they have, make life miserable for whichever quarterback Tucson is throwing out there that's going to be starting and getting their first taste of IFL football for the very first time? Usually in situations like this where you have, a very young, inexperienced quarterback going up against a proven veteran, and I mean, granted, Jaden DeLore's in his second season, sure, but you win IFL Championship MVP, lead a team to a championship, you kind of have that veteran, high upside experience kind of baked into your resume anyways. So in any event, I do like Vegas to cover here. They, like San Diego, are very strong at covering road spreads. I think they're 15-11 all time against the spread on the road. So some very strong results there outside the stronghold out in Henderson. I guess a comparable outcome that I've seen for this game was what we saw last week with Iowa and Quad City, where first-time quarterback had, some big plays, but other major miscues as well, where I could see this game panning out very similarly. Not to mention that Vegas's offense can just explode at any time that they want to. So for them to potentially win this by double digits, I don't believe that would shock a whole heck of a lot of people. So that's going to wrap up my single game picks here. I'm going to go with Vegas on the road to cover 5.5. So we get a full touchdown. We don't even need the extra point if it winds up coming down to that. All righty, so there are our 4 games of the week. Let's build a winning 3-leg parlay. We haven't done this in a while. Let's nip it in the bud right here. So my first pick is going to gravitate back to an original comment from Monica asserting the over in San Diego, Arizona. And I mentioned I do like this pick, and that is how I'm going to kickstart this parlay. 83.5. This is 12 touchdowns, 12 extra points. That alone would get us across. But really what substantiates my confidence in this pick comes down to what we've seen so far from the past few years when these two teams have met. Definitely a lot more shootouts than defensive duels. The 7 games that they've played since 2023 have averaged 91 points per game, with a couple of those creeping into the hundreds. And remember, last year's playoff game, just a clip beneath the century mark, coming in at 97 points with that San Diego 49-48 win. So the only counter argument I could see to this is that Kevin Guy has had some matchups against Nate Davis where he's constructed the perfect formula to contain him. And the strike, and whichever team that Davis was quarterback in, whether it was the Strike Force or the Duke City Gladiators back before that trade a few years ago, that's the only path that I could potentially see to a low-scoring game. That offense for Arizona with Myler, Clark, Johannes, Tyler, and others, we're going to see how they're able to gel from the early onset. But my suspicion is that Myler, if needed, can kind of take things under his own power and put through some production that way. But this is a very matchup-dependent pick, one where we've seen a lot of fireworks in this all-time series. So we'll expect that to continue with San Diego, Arizona, over 83.5. I will also put my second pick here on Saturday. We'll gravitate to this Jacksonville, Northern Arizona game. I'm going to take the over at 80.5. And I'll tell you, I initially had the under for this game. I really didn't want to flip-flop. But the one thing that got me to think about the under a little bit was Northern Arizona's over-under record against Eastern Conference opponents specifically. Believe it or not, it is a perfect 5-0 in the IFL betting era. But like we saw last week, when a number is set in the high 70s or low 80s like this one is, it doesn't take that much to really get close to this number. Like some big plays here in the first half, next thing you know, you got 53 first half points, something along those lines. And for Jacksonville on the road, we've talked about their struggles attempting to cover against the spread. But one overlooked element of their road games is the fact that they've been a very strong over team outside of Jacksonville. I think they ended up going, 5-3 last year, or 5-3 in their first year in the IFL, and then 6-3 last year, including that playoff game. So you put those two records together, that is an 11-6 over-under record. James Cahoon, quarterback for Jacksonville, was a production machine with the Barnstormers a season ago. We'll have to see if he can pick up that level of efficiency with a new supporting cast. But I do like Northern Arizona here, along with Jacksonville, to set the pace. I do think we clear this number. If we get to something along the lines of 42-39, that would be, pretty decent sweat, but it would still get us across. So we're banking on some elevated point scoring here to continue. We're going to go with the Sharks over again versus Northern Arizona's 5-0 under trend against the East. My last pick to wrap this thing up before anybody asks, no, it is not an over, as much as I would love for a triple over parlay to hit. But I'm going to go the other way on the Vegas Tucson game. I'm going to put the under at 82.5 for this one. And we're going to pull back that same argument that we kind of leaned into a little bit with our single game pick, where I just love this Vegas matchup against a quarterback making his first IFL start. Very rarely do we see situations like this where, teams that are starting that rookie eclipse even 30 points for this game. I actually have the Sugar Skulls at an average of 31, 32 points in my model, which means that if that holds true, Vegas would need to clear 50 points in order to put this under any sort of duress, which, again, like I said, they absolutely can. But I do love the idea of betting an under on a game where an offense figures to struggle in the early going. Not to mention that, in these games at Tucson, we did see that crazy streak of unders. I think from the midway point of 23 to the midway point of 25, where it was like 13-1 to the under, something mind-bogglingly ridiculous like that. So we'll prey upon that historical past to sort of fuel this here. That, of course, is contingent on our couple of overs on Saturday reaching the point scoring that we need those to get to. So those are 3 legs. They are each minus 110, which means that we get a nearly 6-1 payout potential. For those willing to put $10 on it, we could see a very nice return, $69.57. No pun intended. But we will see if this is the parlay that finally snaps us out of our trout. So if you like it and you want to tail it, we're going San Diego, Arizona, over 83.5. We're going Jacksonville, Northern Arizona, over 80.5. Both of those games are the Saturday, as we said before. If we get past that 2-game gauntlet, we've got the under 82.5 in the weekly finale between Vegas and Tucson out in the Boneyard. $10 to win just a clip short of 70. Alrighty, so that will put a wrap on this week's version of Wager Wednesday. I want to thank you all again for tuning in, getting prepped up for another exciting week of indoor football action. And for those of you who are interested, a late closing note before we sign off for the night, IFL Cup tickets in New Jersey were put on sale earlier this week. So if you're right around the area looking to catch some IFL action, 2 games on May 18th, 2 games on May 24th. So if you're interested in one or both of those days, get your tickets. It's going to be an incredible experience, especially for those who reminisce fondly upon the lore of Brawl at the Mall from the 2024 Arena Bowl. Well, guess what? We're getting that fourfold once May comes rolling around. So figured I'd pitch that out there. And with that, we will actually this time wrap things up for the night. If you're going out there to play some wagers on the IFL, I wish you the very best. If all goes well, I will see you at the cashier. Have a great weekend, everyone.